Okay, I missed it. It's okay. Just remember the rules and let's do this. So last week I was privileged to film Scott Stokely's clinic in Chiang Mai at Lanna Rock Garden course, and it was so good, guys. I have to tell you, it was so good. And if you get the chance, you have to go check it. But he gave me the permission to show you guys some of the parts of the clinic, and it's awesome. It's just awesome. Check it out.
Frisbee time. So just a real quick background. So I've been playing, I mentioned this last night, I've been playing for a long time. I played my first round of disc golf on the world's first course when it was the only course in the entire world. I grew up, I played every day, I toured for years in the 90s. In the 90s, there was almost no teaching in disc golf. Not on a national level anyways. Teaching consisted of an article that came out in the magazine once every 3 months. It was 3 paragraphs and 1 picture. It was called How to Throw Farther or something like that. These articles were not good. The reason I know they weren't good is that I wrote them. We didn't know how to throw farther. I mean, we knew more than the person that knew less than us, but it's not like today. There's a right and a wrong way to throw. We got that figured out. Back then we were still making the game up. But that's all there was. So came up with the idea of what if I traveled around the country, around the US doing throwing clinics. I'd go from town to town. I would teach everybody, for example, how to throw sidearm. Have any of you ever watched any tutorial video or any tournament videos from the 90s? If you ever do, you'll see one player in the world throwing sidearm. Me. They called it a trick shot. It was that trick shot that I did. And I'm like, y'all are out of your mind. That trick shot where I can throw a hyzer on every single hole. You're crazy. But no one else did it, right? So taught everybody sidearm and X-step, all sorts of stuff. Anyways, I went to 220 cities before any other pro had gone to one. After taking some time off, I came back, did a bunch more clinics. I did my 500th clinic in Nashville in 500 different cities a couple of years ago. Wrote the first book on how to play disc golf, first instructional DVDs. Didn't learn how to teach doing any of that. Where I learned how to teach disc golf was about 5 years ago. I started focusing on private lessons. I traveled around the country. I did more than 1,200 private lessons in 3 years. That's the first time I learned how to teach. Because all of a sudden, all those things that I taught at a clinic, as soon as I'm standing in front of somebody and I tell them what I just told everyone else, if they can't do the thing I'm telling them to do, that's not their fault, that's the teacher's fault. I got to come up with a method that can get them to throw correctly. And once I came up with a method that worked for you, it wouldn't work for you, so I had to reinvent it. But anyways, through trial and error and decades of doing this, I've developed this is hands down the best method of teaching disc golf that there is. What I'm going to show you is basically you're looking at my life's work. But this is the most effective way of learning how to play, hands down. It's an arrogant statement, but it's also true. Which is also an arrogant statement, by the way. I'm okay with that. I'm humble every other part of my life except when I teach. I'm not humble about the way I teach disc golf. I'm very proud of this. So there's basically 2 ways of learning how to disc golf. The first is, has everyone heard some version of just figure out what works for you and do that? Y'all have heard that before, right? Okay, yeah, don't do that. That's a terrible idea. You can't just throw any way you want to. Physics, biomechanics, that trumps your own style. There's a right way to throw for sure. But there's an equally bad way of learning disc golf, which everyone just said they did. Watching the video, maybe in slow motion, and trying to mimic someone else's throw. Like everyone's done that before, right? Yeah, it doesn't work. The reason it doesn't work to mimic their throws, it's not your fault. The reason you can't mimic another player's throw is that every one of us has a different body. We have different sizes, different shapes, different muscle mass in different areas, different flexibility, injuries, scar tissue, different ranges of mobility. It is impossible to mimic another player's throw, technique, and timing and have it work for you. Not because they're better than you, but because you're working with a different machine than them. So here's what I figured out. There's things you must do when you throw, right? You can't throw any way you want to. There's certain things you must do, but there's not that many of them. Once you do these certain things, if you do those certain things correctly, everything else happens automatically. So that's what I'm going to be teaching today. Everybody must do thing A. You must do thing B. You must do thing C. Those are rules. But I cannot tell you how your body is going to move from A to B or the timing from B to C. That's going to be individual to you. All right, talking about the backhand first. First off, I'm going to talk about the backhand as a 3-step run-up. The reason why is that all backhands are 3-step run-ups. If you had a 50-step, quote, run-up, a 50-step run-up is just 47 of this. And then you turn to the side and you go 1, 2, 3. The throw takes place in 3 steps. I am not saying you only throw at 3 steps. You will add more steps to build more momentum, generate more power. What I've learned is I don't need to teach anybody how to take 2 steps and turn to the side. Like, you'll just do that perfect first try. So we can ignore that. We're going to focus on the 3 steps where the timing of the throw takes place. The second thing is, everything I'm going to describe in the backhand is going to be for a flat power throw. I didn't set it up this way. This is just the way it worked out. But the fundamental mechanics of the backhand, every one of them lines up with throwing the disc flat with full power. You're actually going to modify your throw to throw finesse shots. So 3-step run-up, flat power shot. If I asked you all to make a list of everything that you do on a backhand, based on all the YouTube videos out there, I always figure you could probably come up with 50 different things you do based on all the videos. You don't do 50 things, you're going to do 6. If you do these 6 things, you will throw correctly. So that's what we're going to focus on, 6 things only. Timing is actually really simple. Timing comes down to 2 things. First, every single thing you do on your throw, you have to replicate every single thing exactly. If you don't replicate your throw exactly, your timing's off. That means the more things you do on your throw, the more things you have to replicate. The more likely something is off. So the first part of timing is to simplify your throw. Anything that is not necessary to make this object accelerate up this line, you eliminate. On a 3-step run-up, here's all you're left with on your final 3 steps. If you're throwing this direction, the disc does 3 things, your feet do 3 things, and that's it. So the disc does 3 things. Number 1, goes a little bit up the line. Number 2, down the line. Number 3, up the line. That's it. Your feet do 3 things. 1, step up the line. 2, step up the line. 3, step up the line. That's all that happens on the throw. The key, though, is how you put them together, because they don't line up together. So here's how it's going to look. 3 actions to the disc, 3 actions to the feet. So step 1 with the disc, step 1 with the feet, they just go together. That's easy. Step 2 with the disc is the disc going backwards. When the disc goes backwards on step 2, your feet are going to do step 2 and step 3. That's the trick. So the disc goes back on 2 while your feet go 2 and 3. And on the 4th step, you pull the disc. What you do with your head and what you do with your head is nothing. That's important because anything you actually do with your head will hurt your throw. You cannot help the throw with your head can hurt the throw. The most common thing, anything you do with your head, but keeping your head forward or turn your head forward early. Your head does not stay forward when you throw. When you reach back on your backswing, the head does nothing. Wherever the shoulders go, the head just goes with wherever the shoulders put it. Now, I assume the biggest reason people keep their head forward is that you're looking where you're throwing. I think that's the most forgivable technique error there is. Like, it's not dumb to want to look where you're throwing. It's logical to want to see where you're throwing. You just have to understand in our sport you don't. When you throw a backhand correctly, as soon as you reach back, you're going to take your eyes off the target. You're never going to find the target again with your eyes until you release the disc. So you're gonna throw your final 2 steps completely blind. Pull the disc across your body where you have the most strength. This is one of those areas that's gonna vary from person to person a little bit, but you pull where you're strongest. The best analogy for this is imagine starting 2 lawnmowers. 2 lawnmowers, they've been in your garage for like 20 years. They're locked up. You're gonna have to really pull the cord hard to get these things to start. And you're not pulling up, it's an analogy for disc golf. So imagine you're pulling the lawnmower parallel to the ground with your weight above your hips. But you're still pulling a lawnmower. 2 lawnmowers, one of them's in the back of a truck, right about chest level. Everybody here easily could take a lawnmower up here. You could start it first try. We're all so strong up here. The lawnmower next to it is just 1/3 of a meter or a foot lower, right about belt level. All you gotta do is reach down here to feel like you can tell how much significantly weaker you are down here. So really this is just it's just like a mental trick just to recognize how much of a massive difference your power will be pulling the disc here versus here. Not much difference, huge difference in power. All right, well you're weak down here, right? Well, if you go a little higher, you're stronger, a little higher, you're stronger, a little higher, you're stronger, a little higher, you're weaker, a little higher, you're weaker. Figure out where you have the most strength, that's where you will pull the disc. Again, it's just logical. Like, why would you not pull the disc where you're strongest? This is all you do when you throw. Obviously, when you're playing our game, you don't always throw flat and you don't always throw full speed. So here's how we modify this. The way you modify your angle is at your waist. So nothing changes on the throw. You got 6 things that you're gonna be doing. You wanna throw a 10-degree hyzer, right here. 1 hinge, you lean over 10 degrees. 20-degree hyzer, lean over 20 degrees. 5-degree anhyzer, lean back. You can only lean so far back and forward, so at some point you would have to raise the arm up or drop the arm down, right? Those are extreme angles, but the vast majority of throws, especially off a tee pad, take place at the waist. Here's what you're gonna be doing with your wrist as far as angle. Take the disc out of your hand. Where does your wrist naturally sit? Where does it most naturally want to move back and forth? That is the only place your wrist is ever going to be relative to your arm. There's not a single throw in the game where you're going to change that. Because you could pull the disc up here and it'll still move back and forth. You can pull it down here, it could go back and forth. But all you got to do is change the wrist angle and you can feel it kind of grinding in here and it's impinging. Like, there's no way that's right. Your wrist stays in its natural position. The second way you could adjust the angle, hypothetically, would be to throw it lower or higher. But remember, huge loss of power down here and up here. So the smallest trade-off, because you have to trade in somewhere, is just at the waist. So that's all you do to adjust the angle. And then to adjust the speed of the disc, the first thing you're going to do is you don't just try to throw softer, because it doesn't work. You have to modify your throw to throw softer, and all you're going to do is modify it by having less of a backswing. So you want to throw a finesse shot, you're going to come to here. You want to throw a little bit further, you're going to come to here. You want to do a power shot, you're going to come back to here. Imagine you're playing a video game. All right, I'm the character in the video game that you're controlling. It's a disc golf video game. You know exactly what my maximum power is thrown flat. So I step up to the first hole on the video game, and then you have 3 variables to change based on the hole. Okay, you want to throw the disc 15 degrees to the right. Click, 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 15 degrees right. You're going to throw a 20-degree hyzer. Click, 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 20-degree hyzer. But you're going to throw 70% power, so the backswing is going to be here instead of there. That's all you're doing. You have 1 throw, change your line, change your angle, change your reach back for power. I mean, it's not easy, but it is that simple. There's no complexities to all these different shots. It's 1 throw with 3 variables. Grip, just figure out what works for you and do it. Remember that thing earlier I said was terrible advice? It applies to grip. Grip is the one area. There will never be a universally correct grip in disc golf. There is no correct grip in our game. Every world record I've ever set was with a pinch grip. Simon Lizotte, pinch grip. Garrett Gurthey, Drew Gibson, pinch grips. Doesn't mean pinch grip is better. It means pinch grips fit our hand better, gives us a strong grip with a clean, consistent release. Other players will get that result with a power grip. So just forget the name of it. In fact, you want to know why it's named power grip? I was actually there. It was called power grip because the person named it something. That's it. Like it could have been called like the John Kirkland grip or the banana grip or the Baltimore grip or any other name in the world, and nobody would think it flies better. That's called power grip. So forget. This is, so I weigh everything. Like there's things that are absolute set in stone rules all the way to things I'm completely flexible on. It's a spectrum just in between. This is one of those areas where I lean towards straight, but I'm flexible on the cocked wrist. But not all the way. But it's an area where I'm more flexible on than others for sure. Sidearm. All right. Yes. Yeah, y'all have to have a sidearm. You have to. I used to joke you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. I've changed that. You have to have a sidearm. The reason why is because every disc, we just talked about this, every disc when thrown with clockwise spin, which is a right-handed backhand throw, when that disc runs out of spin, it will fade to the left. That means I do not have to be as precise with my angle when throwing the disc to the left. I can be off by 10 degrees on my angle on this Fallon, and it's kind of going to go back to the same spot. Take this disc and turn it to the right, you got to be extremely precise. That's why we all know hyzers are easier. It's not about backhand and sidearm. It's about spinning the disc both directions. If you can spin the disc both directions, you can throw the natural flight of the disc every time. You're not fighting the disc. You just have to have a sidearm. First off, the second biggest myth in disc golf throwing technique. I'll get to the biggest in a second, but the second biggest myth. Has everyone heard that you want to keep the elbow close to the body on the sidearm? Some of you heard this before. Okay, yeah, don't do that. It's just incorrect. There's absolutely no power like this. This is not how you throw an object. Power is going to come from back here. Wait, did I just like strike a nerve? Did you do that? Okay, don't do that. That's not where you generate the power. Power is going to come from out here. By the way, the reason it's taught next to the body is because unlike the backhand, when you throw a sidearm, you have to intentionally and deliberately put spin on the disc. With backhand, spins happen automatically. I didn't use the word spin once talking about the backhand. Backhand spin. Sidearms don't unless you put spin on. So this right here is a shortcut to putting spin on the disc when the rest of the technique hasn't been taught correctly. So that's all it is. So just forget you ever heard the elbow close to the body. Imagine the lower half of your body comes up to your belt line, but then imagine you have nothing but a spring connecting the lower half and the upper half of your body. So it's a spring from here to here. Above you is the upper half of your body. Where the power comes from is by the lower half of your body remaining forward or trying to keep it forward. The upper half rotates, but that's what puts tension on the spring. So the idea is the lower half of the body's forward, the upper half rotates, picture the spring. When the upper half rotates, now there's going to be tension on that spring. Right? You see all that tension built up there? That's the stored energy in that spring because the lower half of the body is going to win out, forcing the upper half to snap back into place. There's two different backswings on the sidearm. There's the pendulum, which is the top of the disc facing away from you, and the disc is going to swing down like a pendulum. This is the only hinge, is your shoulder. And there's a windmill, top of the disc facing towards you. The disc comes around the top like a windmill. Both of those backswings are correct. The reason I'm showing you both is that only one of them is going to work for you. I do not know why that is. I've honestly been researching this for years. I cannot tell you the reason why this happens. What I can tell you thousands of players later is that if the pendulum puts your arm in a good position, there's about a 90% chance that when you do the windmill, it's going to get weird, it's going to get wonky, or your shoulder might even hurt. If the windmill works for you, the pendulum doesn't work. And again, this is a ball joint. This is the most mobile joint in the body. I do not understand. And by the way, and everybody here can also do this. One of them will work for you, one of them won't. I can't figure out why. But something happening in our shoulder prevents our arm from correctly moving both directions. All right, so after 2 steps, it does not matter if you're a windmill or a pendulum. After 2 steps, either way, the lower half of the body's forward, upper half of the body's rotated, tension on the spring, elbow nowhere near your body. At this point right here, they converge, and it's the same throw from here on out. So it doesn't matter which backswing, it's identical from here on out. All you're gonna do from this position right here is 2 things. Number 1, you plant your foot, and number 2, you throw a ball. Okay, so 2 things. Number 1, just like the backhand, a 3-step run-up is not 1, 2, 3. 3-step run-up is a 4 count. It's 1, 2, plant, throw. You have to plant before you throw. Okay, now, one more time. And you would never do this if you were playing cricket or baseball or any sport where you're throwing a ball. But this time, take the ball and put backspin on it. Okay, right? I mean, it's obvious that's not how you make this object leave your hand fast, right? That's not how you throw something. That right there was serving the pizza. That was keeping the palm up. That's the way half the sidearm videos out there say to do it, and they're all dead wrong. You have almost no mobility with your wrist this direction. You have a huge range of motion this way. You're really weak this direction. You're strong this direction. This is how you throw a golf disc, never like this. So forget you ever heard that. All right, so the thing that I want you to look for when I throw this, it's not gonna be like, hey, look how far it goes. Y'all have seen sidearms fly far, right? Throwing far doesn't mean I'm throwing correctly. I could actually throw with bad technique pretty far just because I've been doing this a while. The thing I want y'all to look for when I throw this is watch how slowly my arm goes. Okay, my arm is gonna do this. That's all it's gonna do, all right? Without any arm speed at all. That's cool. Okay, yeah. Okay, and by the way, I know that's a far throw, but there are lots of people in the world that throw sidearms that far. The thing that should be impressive about that is how that was not impressive at all. Grip is completely individual. All things being equal, 2 fingers though are stronger than 1. That's because when you're accelerating forward, 2 fingers will offer more resistance than 1 finger when pushing that disc forward. That could be index finger on the rim, middle finger above it, middle finger on the rim, index finger above it, middle finger on the rim, index finger bent. All 3 of those are 2-finger grips. Well, that's a 1-finger grip, of course. This is also a 1-finger grip. I know there's some ultimate players that were in Thailand before disc golf was here. They used to do this in ultimate a lot. That's a 1-finger grip. This finger is not being used to throw the disc. That's obvious, I think. What's less obvious, that's also a 1-finger grip. If there's any gap between these 2 fingers, then this finger's not being used to throw the disc. So you want the 2 fingers forward. The disc does need to be tucked in your hand, so it's not floating around like this. You want it nice and snug in there to get a consistent release. And I'm not flexible on the thumb like I am with the backhand. The thumb is pinching the fingers. So the thumb's not up here on the disc. The thumb is pinching the fingers. Now the final thing, and this is a subtle thing, but it's an important one, is the pads of your fingers, like your fingerprints, are mostly not touching the bottom of the disc. If the pads of your fingers are touching the bottom of the disc, the only way you could throw it would be with the palm up. So instead, the pads of your fingers are going to touch the rim of the disc, or they're going to touch the finger that's touching the rim of the disc, but the pads go forward. Because the pads are forward, then you can throw the disc. All right, so here's going to be, and I'm not being dismissive of your question. don't aim. You already know how to aim. So if I gave you, because there's, let me back up. One of the reasons why I teach throwing a ball, instead of saying, oh, your arm slots at this and like all these different mechanical, I just say throw a ball, because you've been throwing a ball your whole life. Even if you didn't grow up playing with balls, you picked up rocks and you threw them, right? So many questions you could ask about throwing and about aiming. Well, where does your toe point? When do you transfer your weight? What does the arm do? What are you looking at? What's the release point? All these other things, right? If I gave you a baseball and said, throw it to me, I don't even know if you've ever played baseball, and I guarantee that you would hit an area about this big with a baseball first try, right? If I asked you where your toe is pointing, you'd have no idea. But what you do know how to do is throw. So the key with the sidearm is to not aim. Like, because we know how to aim. Like if you had a pet cat and some dog was attacking and you had a rock, you could throw it at the dog. Like we know how to throw that way. I'm gonna go deep here for a second, but this is my theory, but I believe this. The reason why we don't have to aim with the sidearm is because there's evidence that 100,000 years ago, one of the reasons we survived as a species was because we learned the ability to communicate with one another and then throw things at animals running away from us. There's evidence that we threw things and survived. Like, that's a skill we all know how to do. We did it maybe for millions of years. There is nothing 100,000 years ago where this led to our survival. So this is not a natural way. Now, the reason why this is traditionally a frisbee throw is only because you have to put spin on the disc for it to fly. When you do this, it spins automatically. When you do this, it's not automatic. So if you've never played before and you buy your first frisbee, you go out to play catch, you realize it flies this way and not that way. This has become frisbee. But this is not how you throw an object. Name one other sport where you throw the object like that. So that's why with the backhand, you have to have all these aiming skills, because I do not believe it's a natural way to throw, where this is something that's built into our DNA. Did y'all know that putting is easy? Putting is easy. There, I said it. Twice. Or let me rephrase that. Putting is way easier than you think. Same idea. When you putt, you do 5 things. If you do these 5 things, you cannot be bad at putting. Impossible to be bad at putting if you do these 5 things. Doesn't mean you'll be great at putting. That takes time and effort and years and blah, blah, blah. But you cannot be bad if you do these 5 things. First off, there's 3 general categories of putts. There's the spin putt. Spin putt is a putt that predominantly uses the elbow and wrist as the main hinges. Second putt is a push putt. With the push putt, wrist and elbow are locked in place. The only hinge is the shoulder. And there's a spoosh putt, which is a hybrid between those, which is mostly shoulder. But you do allow your elbow and wrist to give a little bit of pop, to give it some spin. I've come to the conclusion, and I'm as sure of this as anything I teach, that all 3 of those putts are valid putts. I believe that in 100 years, when we've completely figured this game out, you're still going to see all 3 of those putts being used at the highest level. And I'll explain why in a minute. But the good news is, whichever one of those putts you do, because everybody does some variation of one of those, stick with it. I'm not going to change it. This is about the 5 rules you must follow if you do those putts. So the most important part of putting by far is consistency. Okay, consistency is everything. If you're the target and every time I do this, the disc goes in, well, then I'm a great putter, right? Okay, if you're the target and every time I do this, I miss a half meter to your left. If I miss exactly a half meter to your left every single time, then I'm a great putter. All I gotta do is aim half meter to your right. If, however, when I do this, half the time it goes in, half the time it misses half a meter to your left, I'm a terrible putter because I can't predict my results. I'm not consistent, okay? Consistency is everything. So the first question would be then, if I want the disc to come out flat, where does my forearm go? Because I have a hinge right here. Because I could tilt my forearm up here and putt flat. I could put my forearm all the way down here and I could putt flat. But in both these examples, I have to do something. If my forearm's up here, for example, I have to consciously move my wrist to make the disc flat. If I have to do something with my wrist, it is something that I will sometimes do wrong. Can't be consistent. If, however, I put my forearm right here in its default setting, not only do I not have to do anything with my wrist, I don't even have to think about my wrist. It's not going to accidentally go up here or down here and change the angle. It's already in its default setting. Therefore, with my forearm here, I can be consistent. I believe that the two best putters to ever play the game, Ricky and Paul, have such radically different putting styles, right? Paul putts like this, Ricky putts like this. My explanation for that, my only explanation, is that Ricky's body doesn't move fluidly this way, Paul's doesn't move fluidly this way. They have a different body that move differently. I can't prove that, but this is what I believe. And the final rule, I call this the golden rule of putting. The reason I call it the golden rule is because this is the easiest rule to get lazy on. I actually named it the golden rule because I was trying to come up with a way of making sure people did it. So like it's called the golden rule, right? You can't break the golden rule. That's my theory anyways. The golden rule of putting is when you putt, after you release the disc, you leave your hand up at the point of release until the disc strikes something. Basket, chains, grass behind the basket, and then even a half second longer. Now the reason it's easy to break this rule is obvious. The minute you let go of the disc, you can no longer affect the disc. Why does it matter where your hand is? Well, the reason you leave your hand up is because it's the golden rule. Can't break the golden rule. There's a number of reasons why this is important, but the one that trumps all of them, the reason you leave your hand up is because of the most important rule, rule number 4. If you putt and you pull your hand away, you have no idea if you followed rule number 4. Because remember, the disc can go in, just because you didn't follow through correctly, it can still accidentally go in. It doesn't mean you did it right. All right, so I had my best Circle 2 putting tournament that I've ever, that was my best Circle 2 putting tournament I've ever played, was in Koh Samui. And you know how you have your best Circle 2 putting tournament? If you play a bunch of tournaments, you will have your best tournament, you will have your worst. That happened to be my best. There was nothing.
It was just crazy to witness that.
I was laughing too. I'm not the best Circle 2 putter. I mean, I'm not bad at it, but I'm not the best. I think honestly it's a small sample size. It's a statistical anomaly. I followed all the same rules. Like when I'm putting, if I'm fading the disc, I'm following all the same rules. So I'm aiming to the right of the target because I'm aiming out here and letting the disc fade in. But yeah, no, that was, believe me, if I could bottle the answer. All right, thanks you guys for coming out.
Thank you so much, Scott. Thank you.
Ooh, I did give parenting advice. All right.
So this was a short version of Scott Stokely's clinic in Lanna Rock Garden. If you want to learn more, you find all the information in the description. Meanwhile, you can subscribe to my channel not to miss out any other videos I have planned in the future. But now let's try out the 3 steps run up. For the guys who don't know, I have been drawing standstill the past 1 year, I think, so it's kind of weird. So no harsh words please in the comments, but let's try. Yep, 90 meters inside of the circle, it's good enough.